Hey guys, welcome to Luna's restoration. Found Luna in Kijiji ad, April of 21, COVID car. And here's how she sat when we got her. Tires were flat, lots of mold on top, so remove the camper top to have it completely restored, refurnished with off-white. Put all new camper top or canvas top in it, and refurbished the luggage rack, redid the bars, reattached those, all new seals. And put that stuff back onto the bus to be able to start using it that summer. Got her new tires, new wheels, Foosh knockoffs, makes her corner better. Getting up underneath, found some really corroded areas around the torsion tubes, completely rusted through. So knocked everything out that was going to be loose, cleaned everything up, and started doing reconstructing the frame sections where necessary. So there's putting in a couple of new pieces, 1/8 plate, welded that in, and then added a second layer to it for even more rigidity along the, I'll say frame, it's a unibody, but for that section. You can see a hole in the torsion tube in there that we'll rebuild later. And this is the second layer put on. Got everything squared away, got the brakes working, and got to get out for a camping trip. On the way back from the camping trip, broke the center bolt for the hub with a fan. So Luna got her first tow ride. Pulled the engine out to have the completely disassembled, removed the crankshaft to extract the bolt that was broken in it while it had broken down. Redid all bearings, rings, heads were already new, and put her back in. Used two different bumpers, cutting pieces off in order to make the footstep areas solid, not rusted out. And you can see it on the vehicle and lining up, fitting on properly. Got another camping trip that was in Tremblant for the October fall colors. Nice trip. And got to visit a friend of mine up in Petawawa, Ontario at the shed for Donairs and Poutine. Last drive of the season with Charlotte Lake, visit a friend at his cottage. The last drive for that season of the fall of 2021. 21st November, started looking at where cutting out any metal, removed paint and then a bunch of filler, exposing some collision damage that the bus had experienced at one point in her life. Removed any damaged metal, rusted metal. You can see the D pillar is kind of crushed in, was left from an old accident one time. So any of the corrosion that we found, cut out, exposed, and rebuilt frame sections. Seeing here, putting new posts in, put the mounts into the frame for the engine mount piece, so steel tubing that goes through so it won't crush when the bolts are tightened up. Removed part of the fender and exposed a lot of corrosion in the wheel arch tub. Got parts to repair the wheel arch tub from donor bus, so we cut some components out. I got a D pillar, the rear corner section, and the wheel arch tub to rebuild the damaged areas on my bus. Cleaning up the wheel arch tub from the donor bus, repairing any rust that was on that necessary, using rust converter to stopped the rust on the metal, cleaned everything up, separated the components, and then trimmed to fit into my bus. Did some repairs on those components to be able to put them back in. Just clamping in the part just at the rear of the wheel arch tub that the battery tray will weld to. Got that into position, welded it in. So everything's clamped, measuring and lining up. And here we get the wheel arch tub welded into place, and all's good there. Looking at the driver's side subframe, knocking out any corroded metal and creating the parts to reconstruct that frame section. And again, I used 1/8 plate, which is a lot thicker than the original, and rebuilt all the sides piece at a time. Had to remove the D post and the rear apron inner crossmember piece. The D post was pretty damaged from a previous collision, so cleaned up the donor post and trimmed that to fit. All that welded in along the top, and then had to make repair sections for the bottom post because even the donor post had rust at the bottom. So you'll see some components there to fit. Once I got everything fitted in place, trimmed everything to be able to line up properly, welded it in place to reconstruct the D-pillar onto the end of the frame rail, or for lack of a better term, the frame rail. Once that was welded in, then I could replace the inner rear apron below the engine deck lid. You can also see a section that I replaced the fuel door, and that piece of metal I put in off the donor bus. And the reason was a lot of damage to that metal in the previous collisions. The metal was really crinkled up, so cut it out. So put in a new piece, and you can see a measurement of how close the metal was using a flange. It was welded in later. Here you can see fitting the fender and the rear corner to remove any of the damaged section that was in that corner. Welded it in, ground it down, the welds, and sanded it to be fairly smooth. A little bit of filler to fix that up. Moved on to the floor and rear door track area. After that, four of the 6 cross members needed to be repaired, some completely, some as partials. So cleaned up all those areas, rebuilt everything across with all new top hats as I call them, and then there's I-beams. I opened up the top side of the frame at the torsion tube. I pointed out earlier about a hole in the torsion tube. So I cleaned that up, and I had a welder come in and build that all up to like 3 or 4 passes to reconstruct the entire torsion tube to make sure there's no weakness and it's thicker than original now. And start replacing the door track. So the 3 components of the door track, getting the inner onto the end of the cross members and the outer to fit. And then there's the sill plate after that. So we measured that, lined it all up, secured it in place with sheet metal screws, test fit with the door until we got it right. And you can see the heater tube component is completely corroded away, so we fabricated one out of a wide tube for a Chevy 4x4 and some flex tubing to reconstruct that component. And started fitting the driver's side fender and center panel and rear corner, replacing damaged and rusted out components. And got all that fitted up so that the floors on the inside could then be fitted next. You see that there's lots of welding and work going on there as well. We flanged it initially and held everything in place, and then worked our way across welding it. Once that was in place, we could start fitting the new floor and lining it up, marking the areas where the cross members are below the floor, and then drilling every low spot, two for every low spot on the floor panel all the way across. There's hundreds of welds in there. Once that was fitted in place, and you can see the heater tubes exposed for penetrating through the floor at the back, and then welded that all into place onto the cross members. welded the piece in above the heater tubes between the wheel arches. That was a new component as well. The bottom lip was completely rusted away. At this point, all the way around the bus from the B pillars to B pillar is done. I started working on the driver's side dog leg, removing that and fitting a new dog leg in its place. Replacement dog legs don't quite fit properly, so we had to remove about 8 millimeters of material so that the door gap below the door would sit properly. So marked and cut the dog leg and test fitted, cut some more until we removed, I think it was 8 millimeters of material to get the gaps to line up nicely. Then we welded it all back together. The doors were on and off about a dozen times just to get that measurement right. Then we worked on the vent on the driver's side of the back. It was damaged from an accident at one point as well. So we trimmed that out, a replacement piece to fit. Did some repair to the metal that's in the back of that vent. You can't really get to it from that side unless the vent is removed, so did all that once. Sanded everything down and kind of cleaned up some of the damage. Put a filler on there, sanded it smooth, and then we will prime it. On the inside there, be ready to receive paint when we get to that point. So then put the replacement metal in place and spot welded it in place, finish welding a little bit later. The next step was to start exposing the nose at the bottom section. The inner valance was quite corroded, so we decided to open it up and remove any damaged and corroded metal and place new. So we got all the new inner valance welded into place, 4 components, 3 components for the inner valance from A post to A post, and used a POR 15 to treat the metal after and try and seal all that up. We did some repairs on the lower sections of both A posts as well. You can see there's new metal welded on there, and then we started to put the nose skin on the front to ensure it fit well. Started to grind down the welds. Did more of that before body work, but that's the way it goes at that point. Also did the passenger side dog leg and had to remove what 8 millimeter material there for door gap. Same activity did the other side. And we finished all that welding, I think it was the 26th of March. So 21st of November to 26th of March, the metal was removed and welded in all new panels and bumpers to fit to make sure things lined up before the final welding was done. And then we moved on to start doing some body work. And all the body work that we did do on it, there's a couple shots here just seeing the different colors when it was sanded down to be smooth, seeing different layers of paint over the years, a couple of shots of just with the VW emblem on it because I thought the color pattern looked kind of cool. Moved on to body prep, did some of the doors. They just had to be sanded down smooth and a bit of filler to sand them out to make sure any little things were cleaned up. The body prep was about 8 weeks of working and getting the filler and sanding all completed. Mostly worked just one panel at a time between the seams, so we did the rear hatch that you saw there already. Then I just started working on the 2 side panels where there was a lot of long seams, so we did fiberglass filler first, then a coat of regular filler, and then started sanding it out with like 80 grit to get everything smooth and straight, taking care of any low spots, and then sanded it to 120, and then I would move on to the next panel. Final sands beyond that were after priming, but worked my way around slowly, doing just one panel at a time from seam to seam, until we got all the way around the bus. Lots of block sanding. I think it was like 4 gallons of filler and sanded off 3 gallons of it, or maybe a bit more than that. It was a lot of sanding. I did the sliding door. I removed the lower section of the skin that had been repaired previously, so I went a little bit higher, got it clean, and put a new skin on at the bus, and repaired a bit of the bottom inner side as well, and then filled that out and sanded it until it was nice and flat and true as well. Note this is the first time I do bodywork. Watch some of Bad Chad videos on YouTube to see, get some tutorials on it. And a friend down in Cornwall was doing some work on his bus, and he gave me some opportunity to do some sanding and work on his bus, and some instruction as to do's and don'ts. So I just worked through in the driveway with my bus each evening. Then we start priming the bus, went up to high build primer so that I could sand it again, and that way if there's any scratches, sanding scratches from previous work, could be sanded out and smoothed out. So priming took a couple different attempts, or not attempts, but phases to do. Did the whole roof, then did the one side with the nose, then the other side, and then the back. And then lastly I hung the doors and rear hatch and components to prime those separately, inside and outside. And there's a shot to where I'm doing a guide coat and doing a final sand for getting any like sanding marks and things removed. Sprayed on a bit of alcohol, like a degreaser, just to see how the bodywork was progressing and get an idea if it was nice and straight and how shiny it would be once paint is on, just to get an idea of how good the work is so far. Not perfect, but not bad. On the interior, I did the POR 15 on all the floors that were just going to be covered with either the mat or flooring products. And then primed the other surfaces that I had done some work on so that it can be painted. And get one last shot with the VWM on it, and it's ready to take to the body shop to have the paint sprayed on. Towed it out to Kavanaugh Construction Body Shop at Carlton Place, and they sprayed the color in the booth for me. They did a great job, great guys to work with. They did all inside, outside, and it's a Neptune Blue 1972 color. This bus was originally Safari Yellow, but I went with the Neptune Blue just because I had never seen one in person, so I wanted something a little more unique. They did all the doors, all the components, and were even nice enough to bring it back home for me. And we put it into the driveway at my house, and then we carried on with reassembly. Time to reassemble. I had the guys from Glass Mobile to come by and put the windshield in for me. The rest of the glass I did myself. Put the pop top on with the tent and got things secured. Wanted to get all these things put together quickly just to be able to keep it from, I guess, weather resistant. Got the louvered windows in, pop top was on, camper top was on, windshield was already done. Put the side windows and rear window in. And then worked on the front driver and passenger door to put the new glass seals, trim pieces all in. Everything came together quite nicely. And on the floor of the main area, I used like a vinyl plank to fill the area rather than the original layer of plywood and then vinyl. I just went with vinyl planks. That seems to work quite nice. Put a new curtain style in on the behind the closet space that's in the camper model, and rolled the engine out, put the engine back in, and get everything fired up. Installed the camper interior again. So this rock and roll bed, the rear facing bed, and the storage cabinet on the left side is all installed again. And just finished putting, I think, one piece of glass in there. The step is on, bumpers are back on. And sorting out some of the wiring, put a awning on it that I picked up through a friend here in Ottawa, and then she's ready for the road June that year. And then just a couple of images there of different little cruises that we got to do on the summer of 2022. Thanks for watching.